Hi everybody. This is gonna be a video for today. The idea of this video of today is about an article that I wrote about what happened recently in the U.S. and I called the article "The New American Dream." I'm gonna read it to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if so, please give some information about it, comment, and we can talk about it if you want to. So, there are moments in time that make humanity whole, complete. Moments that bring people together in action and thought. Sadly, however, many of those in recent years are strongly connected with some kind of catastrophe or wrongdoing that, um, if not used and quickly make into a part of the common understanding of everyone, it will likely be just something that happened instead of a moment of reflection. The fast pace of everything has been creating in all of us an anxiety of fear of missing out, normally known as FOMO. And sadly, because we are so aware of the moment, um, we miss out on the necessary moment to stop and think about what just happened in relation with what came before and what are the consequences for the future. Basically, if we are thinking beings, then the reason for that rationality should be intrinsically connected with the responsibility of being so. However, we came to create a society that rewards inconsequence, and this leads to many problems like corruption, exploitation, manipulation, subversion, mistrust, disinformation, confusion, and many other feelings also that make the idea of humanity so dark, dirty, and truly flawed that easily can make those like me uh, hopeful, positive fools cringe and retreat into the depressive state. Today, however, I decided not to go into that deep, but instead to make some of these thoughts public and make this opinion video in which I will characterize some of the events that happened in the past 6th of January in the U.S. Capitol. Some of the moments that led to it and what can we expect from it. Just a small thing, one parenthesis about this. This was not part of my day in any way, and I am not directly part of the things that happened and about anything that I am about to describe. But if you want to know anything about me, just take that. I can very easily analyze events, even if they are not directly influenced by or towards me. So, in a very synthetic way, yesterday, the 6th, This video probably is going to be put forward like probably on Sunday, so today probably is going to be Sunday, so whatever. We as humanity got the ultimate proof of the fall of the American empire. Not the beginning of the end, not even the end in itself, but the proof that it has ended, in fact, probably a long time ago already. It is important to take into consideration that I didn't say the end of America or the end of the United States, but the end of the hegemony and power enforcing of one of the most amazing periods of the world. Um, Historically, I must say that this is something amazing to see and live through, and to have the notion and the peace of mind not to be scared and afraid of the consequences is in itself an act of courage. Furthermore, we got to see and experience it in real time, and following the events in such a detailed way that, in my opinion, and mostly due to my own interests, um, it's something that will give us material to study and study how we are as a society, where are, and what we can become. But nevertheless, so thanks to many of the developments that the world under the leadership of the USA got to experience and produce. So it's basically the idea that in a way they were the producers of their own implosion, and for us, the rest of humanity, to see it happen is not only a privilege but most importantly a moment of learning. In a way, there is this almost kind of sense to see the USA as a martyr for all the world to see and learn, if we are willing. If not, it's probable that something like the US is going to repeat itself. But we need to stop, think, and analyze and learn from the things that we have. If not, we are not going to go for very far. So let's do a very brief analysis of the history that led us to this moment. And I'm gonna also just give you, like, this is my perspective, so because this is just the point of view of one individual, myself, I'll choose some events that I consider interesting, but it's very important to remember that in doing so I will be discarding all the other that are not mentioned, that could butterfly effects in history in all different ways. However, the idea is simple. If the event reached me in any way, it meant that it had own one's own aftershock effect. Okay, so it reached some aftershocks to me and probably many other people. So also history, like dreams, it does not start simply from any point. There is not a starting point. It just materializes and gets richer with facts. However, and for the sake of this piece and for you that are watching this video, I am going to start it at uh, what is supposed to be the end of an era. And so I decided to start this small briefing in 1989. The world was changing. The crazy 80s were a reflection of those changes. and which ended with the fall of the empire, the Soviets, and in doing so, the elevation of the still heavyweight champion of the world, Mr. USA. In this process, there were some people who got hurt with it, or at the same time during the same period. It doesn't mean that it was correlated or not, and they took it personally. One of those people would eventually become a president of Russia. Another was about to file for bankruptcy, which would, in the long run, reinforce the need to prove to others and to become what he wasn't, and possibly just for vengeance. Um, if you understand why I'm talking about, good. If not, it's not that difficult. The end of the Cold War meant to the USA the end of an opposition and the end of uh, a confrontative ideology, despite of not meaning that their ideology won, being more that the opposition did collapse from both internal and external influence. Some in the US perceived that they were victorious instead of the humbler approach that the other side had flaws, and why and how those flaws collapsed that empire, and what could they learn from it was in fact made irrelevant by those people. This is something that is intrinsic to American culture, uh, but and I will phrase it in this way. This is kind of we are number one mentality. Also, can be this kind of mentality can be proved detrimental, um, but it's not the only one. So, for instance, the idea that the country got where it was thanks to freedom, God, capitalism, democracy, and many other stamps created a bubble from which became very hard to step out and to see the reality. And worst, to allow some criticism or opinion that would be different from what is echoed inside of the bubble. Um, Once again, I am not saying that all Americans are like this. However, it's almost certain that all Americans are at least a little bit influenced by it. And one of the biggest problems urges from this thing. And in one of the last bastions of Americanism per se, which is the biggest paradox in itself, becomes more clear, which is individualism. So the reason for it to be a paradox is because America is not an individual dream, but exactly the opposite. And it is almost certain that all of those immigrants that fled and went to America were on their own, or, well, if they were with their families, even that case, they were on their own. Um, but it is most likely that they were, in fact, in search of being a part of something bigger, being a part of this America that they heard of and they thought that was bigger than themselves. So even though the U.S. was in fact number one, they were not alone. They were not the only one. Failing to see it and discuss it and compare it with others eventually became part of the current demise. Um, Furthermore, there was this kind of showing off that can easily be compared to The Apprentice. presenter at that time. Do you remember it? You're fired. Yeah. Um, a kind of predisposition of look at me that I'm such a big deal, which made all of us look and in a way follow. Not follow like sheep following the shepherd, but more like today's concept of following like following someone in social media. Although nevertheless, it's still following. And in following it, we start to see many great things happening. Many times were great because they said it so. Other times we saw other things that we can say with some reflection afterwards that were wrong. But because everything was so great, we tried to balance the benefit out. One of such examples happens in 2008. That year, Barack Obama gets elected as President of the United States, and being the first African American president to be elected in a multicultural, 200-year-old, inclusive, democratic society, it created a movement of hope, change, and will. However, this amazing moment movement that was about to start, that could go so far and it could be so amazing, got disrupted right at the beginning by one direct example, that the social structures and the general fabric was collapsing, and that was the financial crash. That was, in fact, so profound and so rooted in the way that the market was operating that even today we are seeing the consequences of it. So that movement was for everyone in the world something that could be seen as something special, that could be eventually be powerful. It could in fact bring change. However, once the financial crash happened, we can see that the objective is to keep the status quo about the financial system, and where many other countries could try to move on and try to search for a different process. Um, there was not that opportunity, and instead and when I say we, I am not just focus on the US, but every place on the world. Instead of trying to figure out a solution for a long-term situation, we just kept believing that the solution was to uh, save all the banks, all the things that were going to collapse, and in fact just buy us some more time instead of just trying to eventually create something better, something more just and for more people. So if it had happened in any other time in history, the system would have failed and society would be building a new system from scratch. Um, in a way, when they saved those banks and all the system, was in a certain way what happened. They rebuilt somehow what they had in a way so that it it seemed that it was okay. So the reason is that I'm referring this again is because we didn't saw the differences of the system. The system stayed exactly the same. So in reality, even if they were making it from scratch, and we didn't saw the differences, uh, just the difference was more in the life instead of the procedures. The question is, did it really happen? Those changes, but. Um, Other changes were brought by, and after the crash was solved in a way, um, uh, and Obama brought some significant changes, not in the economic structure, but the healthcare structure, in many others. And changes are never easy, and even more for those that refute the need to adapt and change. And those became the platform where Donald Trump rose, with easier solutions that, with some thought, seemed almost buffoonery. And taking in consideration that heart of the USA is not just individuals, but mostly individual communities that most likely absorb fear than the sense of unity. And this, and many, many, many other things, became part of the election of 2016. Well, I'm not going to go very deep into that, because I think all of us saw what happened, but I'm going to just pass it through. So then all the crazies of the end of the tens came, and subsequently the end of another empire. Um, and with the attack to all of the things that are most American. The democracy, the freedom, the equality and equity, the capital, the exceptionalism, the individualism, the dream. The alternative reality driven mob that produced the Nothing Burger revolution um, are still part of America. Um, and how society deals with it will be the transition from just an irreverent teen United States towards its own adulthood. The collapse of the American empire is not painted in just these terms. And if you follow the thread, it's likely that the consequences exist since its formation. And most importantly, this is not the end of the United States of America. And it's factual that the healing process will be hardest and will need to involve everyone. But it's possible that the US will be a different country after all of this, possibly more mature, less trigger happy, more reasonable, preferably more responsible with their decisions and its consequences, and even maybe produce its own renaissance, which I hope and I will be hopeful to see in my lifetime. I do think it's possible. So let's get to work, people. There is a lot to do, and I hope this inspires you and brings you to a new plane of uh, consciousness and will to do new things, better things. Thanks to all of us. Bye, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Comment and say if you liked it, and probably we can have a chat about it.